All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into our next video on using writing frames for argument writing. Before watching this video, you should have read pages 17 and 18 and be familiar with that argument from the two folks who are applying for the phlebotomist job. So make sure that you have read that prior to watching the video. If you haven't, go back, take a few minutes and read that. Okay, well, we're going to be looking at using a writing frame in our video today, and you can find that in your packet on page 22 and 23. And I absolutely love frames, and I've loved frames before I even knew they were called frames, because essentially frames are kind of like training wheels on a bicycle. When my kids were younger, they had training wheels on their bikes to help them to learn the balance before they actually were able to learn to ride. Once they had that down, we took those training wheels off and they were ready to roll. Same kind of thing with a frame. Frame provides some sentence starters, and it also provides some blank lines so students can essentially fill in the blank. When they become a more mature writer, they're not going to need these blanks. They're going to know what to do. So this is just like training wheels for writing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to model how I would use these frames inside my classroom. And so I'm not going to model the whole thing. I'm going to show you how I would do the introductory paragraph. I'm going to show you one body paragraph. Then I'm going to show you the counter argument one. Now, if we were doing this in an actual classroom setting with real students, it would be a whole lot more interactive because I'd be asking students questions, getting them to talk with each other. And since it's just me and the camera, I'm not doing that. Just because we're modeling something doesn't mean your audience isn't participating at all. It does mean they are. So try to get them involved as much as possible by asking questions, getting them to talk if they're at a table or talk with a partner. Make sure you get them involved as much as possible or they're going to tune you out. So I am modeling this, but I am leaving out one part that I would ordinarily do since I have no students to work with. So what I always tell my students when we're dealing with anything with a writing and dealing with a prompt is to always do three things. Read the prompt first, read the prompt first, read the prompt first. So we've already read this, but I want to review it. Essentially, the big question says, look at the arguments presented in the two cover letters. Who would you hire? So that's really what we're trying to decide. Who is it that we are going to hire? Is it going to be Lazario Stevens, or is it going to be Enrique Hernandez? So let's go ahead and get started. Now you notice on the screen here I've taken the lines out, which is easier for me to demonstrate. But it's great to have the lines because students can then write in as they go on through. But I've taken the lines out just for purposes of demonstration. So essentially what I'm going to do is provide a little bit of background first. So my frame says, fill in the name of the person who's making the claim that. So I'm going to say Lazario Stevens makes the claim that he should be hired for the job. And then provide the background. Also, Enrique Hernandez says the same thing. So I'm going to say Enrique Hernandez makes the claim that he should get. And I might say this slightly different. I'm going to say they're applying for a job as a phlebotomist. Phlebotomist is one who draws blood for a living. So he makes the claim that he should get the phlebotomist job right there. So this is very WIOA-friendly prompt. This could start a discussion in your classroom about what exactly a phlebotomist is and what they do. Okay, so Stevens makes the claim that he should be hired for the job. Hernandez makes the claim that he should get it. Now, I have already read this and looked through and made my decisions and got out the evidence. So this is something we would work on, though, as a class. But the best argument, I would say, after looking at this is Enrique Hernandez. If you read both of those cover letters, you know that his is by far superior. So I'm going to say the best argument is Enrique Hernandez because, and I want to kind of come up with a couple reasons here, just introduce them. I don't want to go into depth. So the reasons that I've come up with is because he is better qualified and he has a more professional cover letter. So the introduction, we're not going to get a whole lot in depth here. Essentially what we're doing, just following our frame. And so I think we can edit it and look this over as we go through, but basically says Stevens makes the claim he should be hired for the job. Hernandez makes the claim he should get the phlebotomist job. The best argument is Hernandez's because he's better qualified and has a more professional cover letter. So crucial things here. The background and your thesis statement here at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to model paragraph 1. I've basically said he is better qualified. So in my first body paragraph, I'm going to talk about that. So my frame says the first reason Enrique Hernandez is better for the job is because, and I'm going to reiterate that, it's because he is more qualified. One thing you may be thinking as you're watching is, oh, it's just going to be boring with me going through and doing this. Again, work to get your students involved. And students have never seen how to do this before. They're going to be paying pretty close attention to this because we may not know how to do this, but they surely won't. So it's really important that we model these skills. So essentially in my body paragraphs, I'm going to be doing peel. We read a little bit about peel. Peel is you make your point. E, the first E is you provide your evidence. You explain how your evidence backs up the point you're trying to make. And then finally, L, you can do two things. Either link it to the next paragraph or you can kind of draw a conclusion there. So I've got to pull in my evidence now. And after reading through this, I can see that Hernandez is better qualified because he mentions inside paragraph 2, he completed his high school equivalency. He took the phlebotomy training course and received a professional designation, a professional certificate, and also he's got work experience. So I'm going to put all that in. I could quote this, but I think it's better to do paraphrasing for this one. So the first reason Hernandez is better for the job is because he is more qualified. Evidence supporting this reason is that he has his high school equivalency diploma. So I'm going to say that first. And then secondly, I'm going to say Mr. Hernandez also has professional, well, I'm just going to mention what that is. I'm just really providing evidence. So, and as you do this, again, you're modeling what's going in inside your head. It's not going to be perfect. And I think it's good for students to see that you make changes and that you make mistakes and that you have to go back and rewrite things. So Mr. Hernandez also has his certified phlebotomy technician, phlebotomy technician, let's see, I'm spelling that wrong. There we go. Phlebotomy technician certificate from Tryon Tech. And let's see, he also has 3 years of work experience at, let's see, that was Tryon General Hospital. Tryon General Hospital. Okay. So I made my point. Hernandez is better qualified. Put in my evidence. Now I'm going to describe why this is important. So I've got my evidence in here. So I'm just going to try to talk about this. So a good candidate for a job has both professional qualifications and work experience. Mr. Hernandez has both. He has a professional certificate and 3 years of work experience in a healthcare setting at the hospital there. So I've got my point, evidence, talked a little bit about why that's important. And then finally, I'm going to link this either up to my next paragraph. We're going to try to draw a conclusion. Let's see how I can see again that I didn't use the first part of my frame here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it because let's see, this, it said this evidence shows that. I'm just going to add that in. It shows that a good candidate for a job has both professional and work experience. Okay, so now I need to do that last part, that linking part. So I'm going to say here, I was going to talk about his more professional cover letter, but so I'll mention that. The next paragraph, I might say something like, this goes along with the next point that shows Enrique Hernandez has a more professional cover letter. So I'm kind of linking, giving our reader a hint as what's going to happen in the next paragraph. Now, my next paragraph, I'd go and talk about the cover letter. I'm going to model the counter argument since that may be less familiar. And we'll just do this one. Again, with these first two paragraphs, we can go back at the end and edit, and I think that's a good thing to do. But what you want to do in a counter argument is briefly describe what the other side might be saying, but then you immediately come back and show why it's wrong. So we've got the sentence starter here. While some might say, I'm going to put in that, some might say Lazario Stevens, say Lazario Stevens has the better, in a place of argument, I'm going to put in has the better, I'll leave argument in, has the better argument because, and I'm going back to what he said in his cover letter there, because he said that he was hardworking, because he is hardworking, and he also said he was detail-oriented and a team player. So he said all those things. But so I'm going to give them a little bit. He said that, but I'm going to immediately say why that's wrong. It looks like the font kind of changed up on me here, so I'm going to go ahead and put that back so we get a little consistent font. While some may say Lazario Stevens has the better argument because he is hardworking, detail-oriented team player. So now we go on and say why this is wrong. And actually, we've got our sentence starter right up here. It says, this argument is wrong because, so I'm going to go ahead and link that up together. Okay, this argument is wrong because we can see in the cover letter that Mr. Stevens is not detail-oriented. And we can see that all over the cover letter. First of all, I'm going to put in my evidence. I'm going to use my sentence starter right again. Evidence supporting this is that, let's see, and I'm going to go ahead and move this to my other font. Evidence supporting this is that there are many typos in his cover letter. And I can put some examples of those there. He misspelled the Mr. Humphrey's name there in the cover letter as he writes in his one. So that would be, he misspells and Mr. Humphreys is the hiring manager. He misspells the hiring manager's name, and he also uses slang instead of formal language. So there's a couple places where I'll put an example in. He says, I'm going to quote this, who needs that? And he says a couple times, he says like out of there. and he says, you gotta. So there's many typos. He misspells the hiring manager name. He also uses slang instead of formal language. So, okay, so this evidence shows that, and let's see, we got italics and all kinds of stuff going on here. This evidence shows that, let's fix that again. There we go, Ariel. This evidence shows that he is not detail oriented. If he were, he would have carefully spell checked his cover letter to avoid typos. He would also realize he should be writing in a formal style instead of using slang. So I've got my point. In my counter argument here, I've provided some evidence, I've explained it. So what I'm going to do here, and generally your counter argument is that second to last paragraph right before you get to your conclusions. So I'm not going to try to link, I'm going to try instead to draw a conclusion. So he would also realize that he should be writing in a formal style instead of using slang. So using both poor proofreading skills and not thinking about his audience, which is this case the hiring manager, shows he is not detail oriented. Okay, so have I done the whole essay here? No, I did an introductory paragraph. I did one body paragraph, one regular body paragraph. I did my counter argument body paragraph. We still would want to do our conclusion, and we probably ought to do another body paragraph for those aficionado of the 5-paragraph essays, which this fits really well. So this certainly would work for your students, whether they're doing GED, TASC, or HiSET. So I hope this has shown a little bit as how we could use one of these tools, the frame, the graphic organizer, and the model to help our students. But this would be very important, again, to demonstrate, use direct instruction, but get our students involved as much as possible. So I really love frames, I love graphic organizers, and I love models, and I hope you get a chance to use these with your students, because going through using these training wheel activities can really make a huge, huge difference with our students and generally bring them in. So instead of getting a 0 on their writing and losing so many points, they are instead going to get full credit on their argument-based writing essay.